Good Friday, and I found Rich. We were lost in the desert, but we were able to get out of the sands of Dune and make it to your Friday afternoon right before you're deciding whether or not what movie to go see. Well, there's only one movie to go see this weekend. If you want to go to a big budget box office behemoth slash movie that demands to be seen on a big screen. Welcome to Generation Movie mini review on a Friday afternoon. My name is JW Colwell. I am joined with my partner in crime, Rich Dries, as we both, not only have we both seen Dune, we both have the popcorn buckets. But I'm married, so I don't need to worry about that. Anyway.
Did you see on YouTube where Adam Savage of Mythbusters has taken his popcorn bucket and used it as in like a diorama build already? It's really cool. I would suggest.
I saw other things. I saw 23. There was one thing on TikTok. 23 things I did with my popcorn bucket, which again I don't know.
Only watch that if the second half of the title of that was like that didn't involve any of my genitalia.
We gotta hope. Hopefully. So really quick, we're gonna do some quick news bits that have kind of hit out after a regular Generation Movie on Monday. First thing we got to talk about, loss in this world, and loss for us is getting, we're losing a lot of the stars. We were talking about before the show started. We're losing a lot of the stars and people we love, and it's going to get harder and harder as the stars we grew up with in the 70s, 80s, and 90s hit their 70s, 80s, and 90s, right? Like, that's the rub. We lost a great one this week. Richard Lewis had 3 or 4 really great HBO specials about his neuroses that made me laugh in unhealthy, amazing ways. And I think he would have appreciated that. He was such a great talent.
Mm-hmm. I think the genius of him and the lasting impact, actually, of Richard Lewis is going to be the fact that a lot of comics mind their problems, mind their neuroses. Richard Lewis really kind of brought that was his act in a way, and he made the idea that you can be kind of upset. You can be neurotic about things. You can have issues that you're struggling with. He found it funny, and by bringing it out into the open, though, like that, I have to think he helped some people realize that it's okay to talk about these things that they might be going through as well. Larry David, who is
he's the first comic I remember bringing up that he had a therapist.
Yes,
you remember?
Yes.
Like, he's the first comic that said, I sit down with another human every week for a certain amount of money and get my problems out because I am so broken inside. Right?
But
and I think you're right.
Who was a lifelong friend of Richard Lewis. You can go and explore the whole story about how they were born in the same hospital.
His tweet was amazing.
Larry David once said, Richard Lewis doesn't do stand-up. He does lie down. Like, it's very like he's lying down on the psychiatrist's couch, on the analyst's couch, and just letting these things out.
And to paraphrase, God, I'm sorry.
And, like I said, that can be very healing and hopefully empowering to other people to seek.
Well, I think he probably inspired an entire generation of comics to come out and be like, being a little bit off is your bread and butter. The thing I think Larry David tweeted out, and I'm paraphrasing, but it was really great. He said, for all these years of my life, Richard Lewis has made me laugh. Today he made me cry.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I'm going to kill him for it.
He wasn't the. I will admit.
Yeah.
I
so
shed a few
he had some brief movie roles. He was in Robin Hood Men in Tights, right here. And so we just wanted to celebrate Richard Lewis. He was great.
Had a nice run on a sitcom with Jamie Lee Curtis called
Anything But Love,
which was
my God,
just charming romantic comedy.
A show before human resource departments.
True. And just as a fan of stand-up comedy, when I first started getting into it when I was 10, 11 years old, like right in 1980 or so, 81, 82, right in there, he was there already. He was doing stand-up. I was seeing him on cable already at that time, and he was always there through my entire life.
He had some amazing moments on Letterman where Letterman's just like, you're way fucking more crazy than I am, and that's saying something. Let's see. Comment really quick.
There, and it's gonna suck kind of not having him there in the comedy land.
Well, and also he's been he was absent for the 11th season of Curb Your Enthusiasm. He's back for the 12th season and final season. So the rest of the season is going to be a testament to him wherever he shows up. Good afternoon, gentlemen. Good afternoon, Joe. Thanks for joining us. The other big things that have happened this week movie-wise, we've had a name change of a film, Rich. It's a tiny film. It's coming out in July 2025.
Little indie project.
It's an indie project, yes. It's headed up by a director who's made some trauma films in his life. It's called Superman. This is the S. Joe Ridgely so wonderfully put. It has a hint, just a hint of Kingdom Come Superman. And that's, of course, in the shape, the upper shape and the lower shape. It is not black and red just yet. But this is the S. You brought up the snow, and I'm like, yeah, Fortress of Solitude. It's got to be Fortress of Solitude, right? Or maybe we're going to go back and fight some polar bears, Rich. Maybe we're going to...
I was joking that, snow, that must mean Mr. Freeze is the confirmed villain. Because...
There's a lot of people in this movie.
People, taking from like one very small piece of data and extrapolating it into ridiculousness. And I hate that when I see that in fan journalism or, fan stuff like that.
Yeah, the only two pieces of information we have about Superman right now are this picture, and we have a picture of the first confirmed cast read, where Nicholas Hoult is clearly bald. So Lex is going to be bald, which kind of means all is right with the world. The other big picture that came out,
they have started production as of now. Somebody is calling cut. Somebody's calling action. Somebody's calling
lunch.
Union mandated lunch break. And
somebody is saying in a scene, look up in the sky.
Digital, because it's not being committed to film.
It's a bird. It's a plane. It's Superman.
Really yes.
Yeah. Somebody's saying Jimmy Olsen. Somebody's saying Perry White. Somebody's saying all these different, names that we know are in the movie. It should be fun. The other big picture that came out that's kind of.
Just really quickly though, I'm sorry for interrupting. I did want to mention that Ramona Fradon, who was a DC Comics artist from the 50s all the way into the 90s. And then she continued to work doing commissions for like another 30 years. She passed away last weekend, and she was instrumental in helping create Aquaman and Aqualad. And she also co-created Metamorpho, who is going to be in this new Superman movie. And so I was, I'm a little heartbroken that she's not going to get to see her co-creation.
I'm a little heartbroken she's not going to get any money.
Well, that too.
You know what I mean?
Well, DC's been pretty good on some of that stuff. I just saw something that was shared privately on Facebook, where another DC creator got a little check for a little thing that they had created that was used in an animated project recently. And I don't want to kind of go too much more into that because they kind of made that as a shared post among, their friends. People on their friend list in Facebook only, so I didn't want to blast it out in public. But DC, I think, does try to do that when they can, which is nice. And so maybe her estate, her family will get something for that then too. Hopefully, it would be nice that that she would still get that recognition. And James Gunn seems like a good guy who would make sure that would happen.
I agree. I think DC's in pretty good hands right now, although the studio isn't. So. Fuck Zaslav. Anyway, this is the other picture that just came out. It's Tron Ares, the second sequel to the original Tron Legacy, and now Tron Ares. Only thing I'm considerably scared about, Rich, and it's a fair scared. And this is all we're going to talk about with this. It stars Jared Leto. He scares me because he doesn't like. He's finding his fingers into my favorite things. So like he was in Blade Runner 2049, although he wasn't really given any opportunity to ruin that in any conceivable way. And then he was, he's now in Tron. He's dipped his toes in DC in a terrible way, playing the Joker as the worst possible Joker I've ever seen. So I love the Tron franchise. I would like it to be successful. I would like Legacy to be recognized as an unheralded sequel that people really missed out on because it was.
I would agree with you there.
It's a really great movie, but Jared Leto's in it, so I'm scared. But Jared Leto's in it, and I'm scared now. I'm like, it scares me.
Well,
that he's in my thing.
Here's my big complaint. In some of the social media that I've seen where people are talking about the announcement, everybody's all like, oh, but Daft Punk can't come back and do, the soundtrack for this, for this second sequel. Yeah. And I'm sitting there kind of going, well, this is just Wendy Carlos erasure, because she, as the composer for the original Tron, laid down the foundation of what that world sounds like.
Also laid down the foundation for electronica. Let's be fair.
Punk wouldn't exist without Wendy Carlos.
So,
it bums me out a little bit when I hear people say that. I'm just like, guys, come on. I understand people love Daft Punk. It's not my cup of tea, but if you do enjoy it, God bless. But remember your roots on this one.
Yeah, and just remember that things that came before are usually, sometimes are. I love the first Tron. I love Tron Legacy. I'm hoping Tron Ares is going to be good. It seems like it's got a great concept. They're going to build on the end of Tron Legacy a little bit, with programs being able to escape out into the real world as some sort of AI. Sounds interesting to me. Sounds intriguing. It's the next logical step in the programs versus humans versus whatever the hell we're doing. What we did? We need to talk about though. We need to talk about this, Rich. There's this little movie coming out this week called Dune Part 2.
Yes.
It's out. You and I have already seen it. You and I already have the popcorn buckets.
We've seen it twice each, haven't we?
Yes. Well, yes, we have.
Okay.
So I would say the first thing I'm going to say is I think the most interesting thing and what I've gotten a lot of feedback from is that there are some people that did not like the first one, or felt the first one is slow, or felt the first one kind of moved, like it was 2 hours and 35 minutes. This one, however, is 2 hours and 46 minutes. And I'd be remiss to tell you, I feel it moves a lot faster than the original. Because there's no world building. There's no real world building. It moves at a kind of a breakneck pace to get from point A to point B. I think the best thing about the movie is, visuals, acting. The script is pretty tight. When you're focusing in a sci-fi world on geopolitical and religious debate, when we in the world have really serious geopolitical and religious debate going on, it really kind of it sparks an interest in me. And I don't know if it sparks an interest in everybody. But I think it's one of the really interesting facets of a sci-fi movie where we have giant worms, but we also have raging political psychos on all sides. You know what I mean? Like on the good side and the bad side.
The first film works as establishing, the milieu this whole giant epic is going to take part in. And it also gives us a bit of a story arc of Paul going from like a dilettante, son of a duke, to a point where he's like
a scrappy kid with a good heart.
I need to grow up really freaking fast here in order for me to be able to take advantage of this group that I'm finding myself falling in with, to ultimately enact my revenge, on the people who murdered my family and destroyed our house. or royal house, not like physical silly building. And so that kind of works as almost, I don't want to say a kitchen sink drama, but it has its own kind of dramatic arc and dramatic style. Here, though, we're getting all the revenge. We're getting the outsider coming into a tribe of desert nomads. And like I said to you, I think off camera at some point in the last week or two, this is an intergalactic Lawrence of Arabia, with the fight being over space cocaine.
Yeah, it's basically we need to be able to travel. It's oil. It's essentially oil, right? I mean, you could look at the spice on Arrakis on Dune as oil, Middle East kind of ties. You could look at it in many ways. I also think, the heart of the movie, the soul of the movie is Zendaya, right? She's become this amazing actress that not only can star in, serious HBO dramas with lots of questions about teens, to Spider-Man, to a movie she has coming out called Challengers that looks very interesting about tennis. She has become one of the actresses that you can kind of bank on. She's also like a bona fide fashion icon. So she has all these things going for her. And in this, she's the center because Paul's attachment to this new world is her. And Chalamet and her have it. Like I was saying to my wife, watching Chalamet and Zendaya, I think Tom Holland needs to put a ring on it or do something quick, because there's a lot of chemistry between them. I also think that the movie has a secret weapon in Javier Bardem, who kind of gives its most interesting, fun moments where he's trying to teach him how to be the person the Messiah he thinks he is. So he's like, and then like my favorite part, one of my favorite scenes, very little spoilers, but there's a scene where Paul does something really amazing, and then he says, "Oh, it wasn't that great," right? And then the next scene, you see Stilgar Bardem sitting there, and he's like, just like it says in the readings, he's humble. He's a humble Messiah. He has a lot of great moments. Like,
you're right when you say Zendaya is the center of this movie. I think she's kind of like a moral center. She provides a moral anchor for Paul, as Paul, starts having more visions, and he realizes, if I go in a certain path, I'm going to be responsible. That's going to be responsible for the death of millions and billions of people. It's going to lead to a jihad of these
universal war is where we're at.
And he and everything else kind of keeps pushing him towards that. And
she keeps trying to reel him in.
Depth on this in our podcast, which we recorded this morning, but we're going to drop on Monday. So I don't want to kind of retread that too much. But I was thinking now, though, is the reason, she's that moral center where she's trying to keep him like, no, you're just going to be one of us. You're not going to lead us. And then she realizes, she's always felt that the prophecy was a way of kind of controlling and so
opiate for the masses.
You get Paul to reject that, and you see that how that falls apart there through the second part of this movie here. It's really great work. It's kind of a little bit of a change from the book, from what I remember reading years and years ago.
It's definitely a change.
Yeah,
but it's a good change.
It really works, and I think it has all that the movie has to talk about
religious,
religious fundamentalism, things like that. I think that, sadly, kind of important, themes to have in your movie right now to talk about these.
We're living it. We're living it. So it's. And I think it's great.
So I don't have a problem with it being here in the movie. I say, some people are going to complain that, Dune went woke, when it's like, you never read the book to begin with, so shut up.
Well, it's like saying Star Trek. It's like saying Star Trek went woke. Shut the fuck up. Star Trek was always woke. They had an African.
about the second
Star
episode.
Trekkers woke the moment it debuted and Lucy was producing it. Just so we're clear. But what I also want to get back to, the character interactions, the actors involved, Josh Brolin, Bardem, Chalamet, Walken when he shows up, Florence Pugh when she shows up. Everybody's cast perfectly in their slots. And then Austin Butler shows up, dude. And you get, like, I don't know about you, but there are moments when Austin Butler's walking around where I get serious Empire Strikes Back vibes as, like, an actual villain has approached, like when you're playing old Nintendo games and a new challenger approaches and he's spitting black and he's cutting people apart in a giant coliseum. That whole sequence, which is not from the book, right, where they go to the Harkonnen homeworld and it's just, everything's black and white. That's it. Shot, as I learned last night, in infrared for vast sequences so that the blacks and the whites could become so perfected. He's a great villain. He's an ample challenger to Paul in every conceivable way. I also want to point out that if you like the original Dune that was directed by David Lynch, I was thinking about this last night as I watched the original Dune a couple days ago. The end sequence is virtually the same. It's a fight. Everybody's standing around. Mm-hmm. It's very similar to how Lynch shot it, except there's no drummers, which is wild.
And it doesn't. And the Lynch version ends with the rain too, which I think thematically works kind of with what Lynch was doing. There's a lot, unfortunately, wrong with the Lynch version, and most of it is they don't have the time to explore the material.
Right, and it got cut. It got taken away from him. It got cut up by Universal. Yeah. Their mistake. What I will say is, if you didn't like the first one, I think there's hope that you might like this one. A lot more action, a lot more sandworms, less space battles, a lot of fighting, a lot of guerrilla type fighting, guerrilla warfare kind of stuff going on. I think, I was talking about this to a friend. It's probably the seminal sci-fi movie of our time right now. And I'm always a Star Wars fan. I'm always waiting for the next great Star Wars movie. And all the Star Wars movies that we've had in our lifetime, Rich, are all seminal sci-fi movies. But for a new generation, this is going to be their Star Wars, right? This is,
in a way, yeah.
We have a young actor who's going to be a superstar. He's already a superstar. I mean, he's proven he can do Dune. He can do Wonka. He can do, a movie about fine young cannibals. He can do all these movies. You got Zendaya, who's has, dare I say it, Carrie Fisher vibes. Like, she has them. You know what I mean? Like the kind of just gravitas that was, that's present in actors of our generation. And then you got Pugh and you got Butler, and they're all kind of interacting and working together to make this bigger, faster, stronger. And it's just one of those movies that you need to see with a crowd, and you need to see on the biggest screen possible to get everything. Like, this is a shot that I was looking at that I've been obsessed with since I saw it on the screen. This shot, as Paul is watching the plan, there's a moment where they do a plan on the ground with drawing in the sand. And then this is the moment where Paul is watching the plan unfold in front of him. And it's just, it's epic in every sense of the word. I mean, it's not Lawrence of Arabia great. It's not, fucking Peter O'Toole taking out a train with a bunch of, of Arabs in the Middle East in the 1920s. But it is the closest thing we have to that shit right now. There are very few filmmakers, Denis Villeneuve, I should say. Villeneuve is working.
3 years in high school is finally coming off.
It's finally working. I took Latin. Spanish, and French. Latin was fun though. We had a great teacher named Miss Kakarika, who turned Latin into, she did it telling stories in mythology. She had all the Latin, like she made her own workbook so you could learn Latin from mythology. It was great. I credit her with a lot. I also she hated my, like she didn't hate me, but she was just like, she was one of those teachers that was disappointed that I was a politician and not putting all of my effort towards school. Anyway, it is what it is. But this central relationship, Zendaya and Chalamet, like they're two of the best young actors we have right now. They have a lot of chemistry. I love all the stuff with the Fremen. I love the concept of learning how you get a Fremen name. I love the concept of how somebody becomes a Reverend Mother on Arrakis. Rebecca Ferguson, also an unsung hero in this movie. She is bone chilling in that she believes her thing is right. And she's going to, there's a moment she gets where she gets to kind of toss it in somebody's face. Told you my son was something special. All of that works. Like all of that's the thing. One of the things that that Denis gets really right is that the character interactions all work. And once you get what they discovered, 1977 is if you get the character interactions right, all the other stuff will come. Like all the other stuff will fall into place. Fighting with giant worms and, ships that look like, dragonflies. All of that will work as long as you have characters interacting in the right way where they meld on screen. And that's what happens. These people are these characters now.
Yeah, Dune has always been a novel about characters and their interior lives as much as it is about anything else. And I think that's kind of been the one stumbling block for other people trying to adapt it, whether they make it to the screen like Lynch did, or the Sci-Fi Channel's miniseries version from 2000, or, when Jodorowsky, just couldn't get it to happen in the late 70s.
It's a money it always becomes a money issue. It always becomes and you're right though, but not focusing on the character, focusing on the concept. Or the sci-fi thing is focused a little bit, didn't try to put all of them together at once, as opposed to going in and picking out the parts of the books that worked. He gave a thing last night on Colbert where Villeneuve basically said, if I do a 3, if this one's successful, which he doesn't, we'll talk about that in a moment. If this one's successful, I'm going to take pieces of Dune Messiah, which is the next book. So he has a plan that he has followed to a T, and we have our first blockbuster of 2024.
Yep.
And it's great. It's a seminal sci-fi movie. If you're a sci-fi fan, there are things in it that you just can't pass up seeing on a big screen with the best sound. I know you have a great sound system and home theater, but seeing it with other people, watching the cave paintings on the wall is the way this movie is meant to be seen. So I can't encourage you enough. Comments. Let's see. We got a comment. Thanks to you guys. We just reached 600 videos on your YouTube channel. You two are amazing. Thank you. Thanks, Joe. We're at 600. Next Monday we start on 700. Anyway, we are what we are. We're prolific at best.
We yap a lot.
We yap. We like hearing our own voices. Just so we're clear, in case you're worried about box office, it's finally time to return to Arrakis as the Variety headline. Dune Part 2 has arrived, making $12 million in previews at box office from more than 3,400 theaters. IMAX theaters are at 4.5 million of that large haul. It looks like it's on its way from anywhere from $70 to $90 million. Anything over, I'd say 80 for a 2-hour and 45-minute movie is icing. That's icing on the cake. Because as everybody knows, when you watch our show, if you have a longer movie, have less amounts of show times, less amounts of chance to put butts in seats, just like a restaurant.
Yeah. Now the budget on this is 190 million. So figuring in advertising, theatrical split, something, this is ultimately going to have to make about $500 million, $500 million. I don't think that's too big an ask for this movie.
Because worldwide, it's already crazy. It's already they've been going all over the world.
I honestly see this thing hitting about 700 million, to be honest. And so
Batman, I put it in Batman range. The Batman from 2 years ago.
That would put it, very comfortably within, a realm where the studio should want to say, let's do a third. And then this has always been a passion project for Villeneuve. So I'm he's already talking, he's already thinking about it. I saw a couple of things in this part 2 that felt like that feels like that's actually kind of putting a seed, so to speak, planting, a little thing.
That's a hook. That's a hook for the next movie.
For this movie, it didn't pay off in this movie, but he's already planning what he wants to do next. And so that and maybe that we're kind of more with an eye towards that. And I'm fine with that. It didn't necessarily...
It doesn't take away from the narrative.
Or kill the movie at all in any way, but it's nice. It was very well done. Especially
there's seeds. Yeah, there's seedlings.
Happening. Yeah.
They're seedlings. And they're just... The idea that, Walken plays the Emperor in this, the idea that all of the different parts, all of the other houses will become involved at some point is kind of glossed over, but eventually we'll get there. Because so far we've only had the Atreides, the Harkonnen, I should say, and the Emperor and his house, and of course the Bene Gesserit. The female druids.
I've got 4 decades of hardwiring of the way the names are pronounced in the Lynch version. It's going to be very hard for me to undo
and Harkonnen. Yes. Harkonnen and Harkonnen has been really bad for me trying to get it right. But what I will say is, if you owe it to yourself, even if you go to a matinee, but also you owe it to, one of the things that's going to happen with this movie. It's not going to have as big an opening weekend as you might think. And here's what I'm going to tell you. I think people are going to wait till Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday to make sure they can see it either in Adobe or an IMAX or some giant way to see the movie. So I don't know that all the screenings that are just regular digital are going to be as packed as trying to get a seat for a 4K or not 4K, like a 4D or any of the specialty things that we have in theaters. So be very careful about trying to make sure you get your seat in one of those things, but get your seat. Go. It's something to watch on a big screen and take a bunch of people with and have an intelligent discussion about a lot of things, about destiny, about...
At our screening, which was standard digital, it was an 8:45 screening, so we were literally the only 4 people there. But again, it was 8:45. We were walking out to our car at midnight. I was in my car right at midnight. So I could see on a Thursday night, people not wanting to do that necessarily.
Right, but I also think it'll be a little bit muted because people are going to wait for the big I think the box office thing of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are going to be really interesting, especially since a lot of theater chains do the cheap tickets on Tuesdays, and all seats are a certain amount of money. So I think there's going to be something there. But it's fun, it's interesting, it's well done. People actually care about what they're putting on screen, which, as Rich and I know, isn't always the case.
And this movie has 3 weeks basically to itself in the theaters. The next big thing that's coming out is Ghostbusters on the 22nd.
I already got my tickets, Rich. I'm sure you have a screening coming up. I already got my tickets. I got my tickets yesterday. I woke up a little bit more earlier than I normally do. I went and sat down in my TV chair to watch Shogun, which, by the way, fantastic on Hulu. Another thing I can recommend this weekend. Although it's a lot of reading. Just be prepared. It is set in feudal Japan, as we all know. James Clavell. It's really good. Ken Watanabe's in it. It's really good. And violent and fun. And first episode's really sexy because it's like got to do a little Game of Thrones-ish kind of thing. But that's really good too. So we got little sexy time. So that epic, and you have Dune. Everything's trying to come together right now, and you're right. The next big movie is Ghostbusters. You can tell the big movie's rich by the popcorn buckets. That's where we're at right now, man. That is where we're at.
Crummy Slimer popcorn bucket. I'm waiting to see. I need a Ghost Trap or an Ecto-1 popcorn bucket.
Well, I was telling this to the guys on. We can make a deal. I don't really want the Slimer bucket. I was looking at it. It's not great. No. I will. If you send me the money, I'll get you a photon trap and I'll mail it to you.
Mm-hmm. I don't have a problem going down to like Allentown, an hour away, to an AMC, because sometimes they do get like some foreign stuff in it. A couple of the locations that we don't get up here. So I'm just keeping an eyeball on what's happening there in terms of stuff. If our screening is early enough, it most likely will, the critic screening is early enough, it most likely will be at an AMC.
Well, there you go. You might be able to get your bucket. You might be able to get your bucket.
I have good chances, so I appreciate that. But
I just want to say Dune 2 as jaw-dropping. Like, I think it's a seminal event, and I think if you're a sci-fi fan, even if you didn't like the first one, because of its extensive world building, you should go to this one because there's a lot more action, there's a lot more stuff going on, a lot more characters, and Austin Butler doesn't talk like Elvis, and he's he does not. He is bone chilling in his thirst for blood and just violence. Well, he's a sociopath. Yes, okay, he's fantastic. That's where we're going to end it. Go see Dune 2. Also, What else are you going to go see? To be honest, like, just go see Dune 2. Have a great weekend. We'll see everybody. If you're looking for something to watch on TV, I recommend Shogun on Hulu if you have it. Pretty damn good. And we'll talk to everybody Monday for Generation Movie when we do this little, as our Oscar decade cavalcade continues and finishes, this little movie called Spotlight. And that'll be Monday at 10 o'clock.
Good Lord, look at that cast. Ugh.
Look at that cast. Amazing. Thanks for joining us today.
Half a dozen times, and every time I look at that list, I'm like that's insane.
And they're all in the same shot in the poster. They're all in the same shot talking over each other and to each other, and amazing. Have a great weekend. We'll see everybody next week. See you on Generation Movies Rich.